Hello, and welcome to our monthly webinar series, Best Practices with Device 42. This month, we're going to go over imports and exports. For those of you that are new to these webinars, we have four moderators, Stan Tasinski, Dan Hallroyd, Tim Mickens, and introducing Florin Borlia, who is one of our newest CSE here. So I'm going to go over my spiel with the slides here, and please feel free to type any questions you have throughout the presentation. I'm also going to be leaving some time at the end for any questions. Sweet. Awesome. So the first topic that we're going to talk about, and I'm not going to spend that much time on the slides, as you know, just a few words written on here. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper and go into the UI and show you where the stuff is. So imports, exports, obviously an import's going to be bringing in an item into device 42, as where an export is going to be just taking that data out for whatever you need that to be. So there's going to be two types of main imports. The first one is going to be found under tools, imports, and exports. And the second one is going to be under any item's main page. And that's where you're going to be doing any of those imports. That last one is more of a reimportable export, but as it mentioned, it's reimportable. The second thing that we're going to be talking about is going to be those exports. I'm going to talk a little bit about, the reimportable export again, what the quote unquote device export is, and what the selected columns export is. And again, feel free to ask any questions that you may have throughout this, as that's what we have the moderators for. And I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here and jump straight into the GUI. Just bear with me here. All right, so let's go over those import features that I discussed before. So the first one was here under tools, and then we have the imports and exports right here. And let's just go to devices, as devices is usually one of the main things that you're going to either be importing. And I have it filled out a lot better in my own instance over here. Sweet. So there's going to be, as you can see, there's going to be three different categories under the imports and exports here under devices, create update devices v2. So you have the download sample, Excel file, view documentation if you ever need to view that documentation. And then we also have the download the current data. Awesome. And let's start with downloading some of the current data here. And I have a few devices in my environment, so it's going to take a second. And just let me know. Here's a sample of that. So when you download the current data, it's going to give you all of the device data that you have there, or whatever type of export that you do. This can be a little bit on the cumbersome side if you wanted to, say, add things to this. The reason I say that is just because there's so much information on here that it could be a little bit overwhelming. I believe I have 500 and something devices on here. So if I wanted to add something, I got to scroll towards the bottom and be able to add those devices on here. So I prefer not to add devices when I download the current data. I use this, say, if I need to, I don't know, change a few items on here. Say I wanted to change some of the types on here. I could basically do an auto filter, and then I wanted to change anything that is, let's do cluster. And I wanted to change these to physical. And then physical there. And just so that I can remember what this device is called, well, we would basically just save that. Awesome. Now, if I wanted to import that, just, basic status, just choose a file. I remember it's called device 19. Let's import that. It'll probably take a little bit since there are over 500 and something devices on there. These are the two devices that were mentioned as cluster. Notice how they don't say cluster anymore. They just say physical. And let's just double verify on that. One that we changed, physical, sweet. So that's going to be the download of the current data. Let's go to the other one here, which is, this is the one that I like to use if I want to add, say, mass amount of items or a mass amount of assets or anything like that. I would basically just download the sample Excel file. That's going to be a lot cleaner. I can basically name this. Let's do webinar import 1. Let's put a serial number down. So let's just go with 8675309. And then let's do, yeah, that should be good enough for now. Let's save this. Yep, it's called API device post. Let's make sure that it's back in there. And of course, leave that out. Awesome. So there's our device. There's the serial number, the 8675309. I always like to put the serial number in if I'm going to be importing things, just because that way you can match your CI items a little bit better. If I just put in the name and say I did some sort of auto discovery on there, it may not match depending on what name is discovered. If, say, I have the FQDN or anything like that. So putting in that serial number is always going to be a best practice for manual imports, especially of devices. Awesome. Now, the second place where we're going to find that is going to be under all devices. Here, and let us just whatever, select one item here. Let's do an export. And we're going to select the re-importable export here. So this, again, like I mentioned, is another place where we can just add things. So if I wanted to do the same thing, just one, let's add 0.0.0.2 there. Let's do the only caveat to that is then you have to go back to the imports page and then import that way. And there's a device that I added. There's the other device that I added. So it's, pretty simple, not much to imports and exports here. It's pretty much just doing either a re-importable import. Another way that you can import things too as well is going to be through our GitHub page. And basically doing it that way under devices, doing a post. Another thing that I want to mention on here, I've mentioned it before on another one of our webinar series, best practices for tagging, is for certain things you can add different columns to it, if you will. Say for the export, if you go all the way to the end on one of the exports, you can definitely add, say, columns on there. Or not columns, sorry. Add like tags on here. If you notice here, if we scroll all the way down to the end, there really isn't anything there. So if I just throw in tags on there, then I can add any tags to any devices that are already there, or tags any created devices that I just created on my side. Awesome. So next, I am just going to mention that not every single page here has a reimportable import to do so. I mean, some of those pages, you know, things like racks, you're gonna be able to add devices to racks or power units to racks. Parts and models, you can do a reimportable export. You know, parts, obviously devices, assets, subnets, IP addresses. You're either gonna see the export here when you drop the hammer, it'll either give you the reimportable export or on the ones that it doesn't. And I have a full list of, you know, take too much time to go through over everything. It's just gonna throw out that CSV on there. Sweet. So let's move on to the exports, which basically we kind of already covered with the imports because they're gonna be in the same kind of locations, if you will. I just wanted to more so go over some of the other options when you click the export here. So when we click the export button here, you're going to see that there's going to be three different things. We already did the reimportable export type. Then we have just the regular device export type and the selected columns export type. The regular devices export type is going to basically just give you a CSV, select all. Didn't select anything. Now the CSV is just going to give you just a generic CSV of all the devices that you have on here. It's, you know, you're not going to be able to do a reimportable on here or reimport this over here, but you know, you can use it if you needed to, say for reporting. You wanted to do a quick report, you do an export right there, and it's going to give you every single device that you have in inventory, as well as a whole bunch of other information on here. But again, this is also something that is not able to be reimported. There's going to be another section as well where you can get this type of an export, and basically that section is going to be right here. So if you go to tools and then you just go to export CSV, and then there's going to be all the different categories where you could do a regular type of export. And again, you could do the device, say, and it's just going to spit it out as a CSV and give you the exact same data that we just did under the devices main page. Awesome. So let's talk about the other ones here. So we're going to say, let's add a tag here just to make things a little bit easier. I pre-created a tag before and we called that webinar. So we're not spitting out a 500 device document again. So the other type here is going to be the selected column one. This was going to be a little bit different because this one actually lets you use a, I don't know, like a system column list that you've already created. So this is going to be really good, I guess, again, for reporting. If you don't want to show all that data, I would click on this one here. And then it's going to basically just give me an export on all of the fields that I have on, say, a said column list that I created here. Since I chose the webinar tags, I applied the webinar tags on 38 devices. And you can see that there are 38 devices in total, or 39 minus the one here for the headers, column names. So that's pretty much it here as far as the exports here. And this is where you would basically choose that column list. I have the systems column list and I have my webinar column list here. I switch that over. You can see that there's only going to be a few things that are defined. Probably for another webinar on creating these, but you could basically create that, move these around, select the different things that you want to see in that export as well. And that's pretty much going to be it for the exports. And I'm going to open it up for any just further questions that anybody may have here, or pretty much anything else. Awesome, man. Chris, I hope that we answered that as far as the column list. Depends on what type of export you're going to be doing. I mean, you can go down here and create different columns. I like to, as I mentioned on this one, say I want to create a new one here. John's, and I want to see, oops, everything there. And I think I forgot to share. Sorry about that. Awesome. So let's go over that again. So I like to, when I'm creating something, just go straight through here. Let's call this John's again. Let's just do 1, 2, 3, 4 different things. I'm gonna save that as new here. Export it. And do the selected columns. Now when I look at it, I just have the few things that I randomly clicked on. Yeah, Thomas, as far as like unprocessed device records, that was a webinar that we had last month. I could definitely send you the recording of that. You know, it was a little bit lengthy. Dan went over that. He did a really good job. So after this meeting, Tom, I will send you the unprocessed device records. But basically, it just basically came out to changing your device matching to something like classic, where it's going to match on that UUID, on the name, and on the serial number as well. And Mark Salaby, sorry if I butchered that a little bit. You're asking if you can quickly elaborate on tagging. Is there a way to give an admin group permissions to only edit a certain tag from a CSV group? Awesome. Yeah. And again, guys, feel free to reach out to me if you guys have any further questions or anything, or if you want to set up a quick working session or having some difficulty doing anything, reach out to your CS team or reach out to your sales team, and they can give you my information. Just pretty simple, john.ferrero@device42.com.
John, sorry to jump in. HG had a question on the list of export options. Why was the port showing twice? And if you could just, show that again or go over that again, maybe answer that live. Thanks.
Yeah, on which one was it?
I believe it was on the export. HG, participant HG answered on the list of export options. Why was port showing twice?
Yeah, let me find them. HG said. I'm not finding that one. Sorry if you see my head moving around. I have like 4 monitors here and one tiny little camera.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was in the Excel spreadsheet and port was listed twice, or
yeah. So let's look at this one right here.
I think so. HG, if you could
there, yeah, it is
elaborate. Okay, if that's that list, yeah.
So let us look at both of them.
It's actually listed 3 times. Oh, this is part. Never mind. Part twice. Port twice.
So let's take a look at this one. And then let's download this one. So this one, and I don't really know why it isn't labeled. We'll bring this back, Deb. Thank you so much for pointing out. This looks like it's more so on a power unit, whereas this would be every single port that we have here, as there seems to be a lot on mine. So yeah, this would be any single port that it finds on here, whereas the second one is just any ports that are going to be on any type of power unit or anything like that. Probably should name that something like power unit ports or something, because here's the power units. Yep. So that should probably be named something like power unit ports. And we'll bring that to Dev. Definitely appreciate that feedback, as I didn't even notice that it had port on there twice. So anonymous attendee, how do you select records on other pages if you aren't selecting all items on the first page? So like say on here, so I mean, if I wanted to do say like the first page here, I would probably select everything, uncheck that one, check it back again, and then it's going to basically just select the 50 items that are on that first page. You can either do it that way, you can select all of them. If you think about it ahead of time, you could create tags and just filter from, say, tags, and then it's going to give you anything that would have that particular tag in it. You could do multiple tags on there. And then you would just basically select all of those 19 items that I have for those 3 tags, and then you would export those items as well. Awesome. And we have about a minute left here. So if you have any questions that by chance we don't get through, I have a list of all the questions that were asked, as well as any emails or anything like that. So be more than happy to